What if losing weight didn't have to be a fight you keep losing? What if the real trick isn't willpower, but a few hard learned lessons that actually stick? Friends, today is my birthday, and that always puts me in a reflective sort of mood. So, today I am taking a look back at my own health journey over the past 4 years and some of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. Because let me tell you, there's definitely some stuff that I wish I had figured out sooner. And no matter where you're at in your health journey right now, these 7 lessons might just be helpful for you too. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, well, then here's the quick scoop. As of today, I am a 47-year-old woman who struggled with my weight and my health for 10 long years, failing at diet after diet until finally I decided to take a radically different approach. Instead of starting yet another diet, I started researching, and that is when everything flipped. I found out that basically everything that I thought I knew about weight loss, what's healthy, what's not, was totally wrong. The real key to losing weight and keeping it off isn't calories, it's hormones. So I changed my whole approach, and then I lost 49 pounds and kept it off. Without dieting, without Ozempic or any other weight loss drugs, and without making myself miserable. And if you're here listening to this, I'm pretty sure you know that struggle too. The frustration of trying so hard, so many times, maybe dropping a few pounds only to watch them creep right back. The shame that sneaks in when you feel like it's all your fault. And the embarrassment when you can't fit into your clothes or you don't want to be seen in pictures or you dread running into friends that you haven't seen in a long time, right? All of that. I lived with that for over a decade and it wore me down. But 4 years ago, I cracked the code, not with weight loss drugs, not with starvation, but with real changes that actually healed my body. And honestly, sometimes I feel like I still have to pinch myself that this is real, that I finally did it, because most days it still feels like a miracle. And maybe I'm getting a little sappy here, but I think my birthday always does that to me. It makes me feel super reflective. It's like, oh, I want to look back. I want to see how far I've come. And so that's why today this milestone is making me want to share what I've learned, because if it worked for me, it can work for you too. So let's unpack it. The 7 biggest lessons that got me here. They're not quick fixes. They are truths that last. But real quick, before we dive in, I do want to say that if you are new and you're curious about how I did this or how you can start and you want more information, you want to go deeper, please be sure to check out my free training at thinlicious.com/happy. It's called Healthy, Happy, and Free, and it's really good. In fact, I just revamped it to make it even better. So even if you've seen it before, you might want to watch it again. I'm just saying. But what it does is it helps you lay out a 12-month plan to transform your health. No fluff, just what works. And again, that's thinlicious.com/happy, and then I will toss the link in the show notes as well. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's dig into the 7 biggest lessons I've learned over the past 4 years that helped me lose 49 pounds in my 40s and actually keep it off. Lesson number 1, it's not your fault, but you can fix it. You know that little voice that says you're weak because you can't stick to a diet? I had it too. For so many years, I blamed myself and my own lack of willpower for letting my weight spiral out of control. because it wasn't like I hadn't tried to lose weight. I literally had tried everything: green smoothies, juice cleanses, meal delivery services, going vegan, Weight Watchers, the F Factor, cabbage soup. The list goes on and on and on. And every time I would fail at yet another diet, I would feel more and more ashamed. Why couldn't I fix this? Right? Like, that's what I kept thinking. Like, why can I not fix this? What is wrong with me? I am not a lazy person. I am not unmotivated. It wasn't like I wasn't trying. But here's the truth. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't. And it's not yours either. We have been fed lie after lie after lie after lie by the diet industry, by big food and big pharma and all the experts who are supposed to be telling us the right thing to do. It's all basically the same bullshit. Eat less and exercise more. Calories in and calories out. But what no one's talking about, what no one told me all those 10 years that I was struggling, is what is actually going on. That the food that you are eating, even the so-called healthy stuff that's low in calories, is loaded with sugar and loaded with processed garbage, which is wreaking havoc on your hormones. It is jacking up your insulin, which throws all of your other hormones out of whack. And when your hormones are messed up, your body cannot burn fat. It can only store it. It doesn't matter how little you eat. And that's why you're stuck, not because you're weak. But here's the good news. You can fix it. You can. You can fix it. It's very fixable. In fact, it's pretty easy to fix it. But it starts when you stop blaming yourself and recognize the real villain in this story. That's the lesson there, right? It's not, I'm weak, I suck, I just don't have enough willpower. It's, I've been lied to, and now I know the truth, but now I have the power to actually do something about it, right? It's taking back your power and realizing that you can do something about it. Once I stopped beating myself up and started learning what was actually going on, right? I started digging into the research. I saw the problem with insane clarity. It was the sugar. It was the processed crap. It was the hormonal chaos. So then I had a choice, because at that point, right, you have a choice. You can choose to stay stuck in the old paradigm, to keep listening to the lies and then keep believing it's not your fault, which it's not. It's not your fault. You've been lied to. But now that you have the truth, it is your fault if you don't do something about it. So I committed to that. I stopped dieting and I committed to cutting out sugar, and I just focused on healing. And after failing at diets for 10 years, the weight started dropping off just like that. The truth is, you are not broken. You have just been misled, right? The system is broken, not you. And you can do something about it. So take back your power. And to me, knowing that changed everything, because it's so freeing. It's not about guilt. It's about taking back control. And you have that power too. So that is lesson number 1. This is fun, isn't it? Lesson number 2, fat is not the enemy. And this one is kind of closely tied to lesson number 1, but if you are a child of the 80s and 90s like me, it's still a huge paradigm shift, one that takes a lifetime of unlearning. Because I used to think fat was really bad. I always would choose low-fat everything, skim milk, low-fat margarine, you name it, all in the name of cutting out calories and getting healthy. And meanwhile, here I was chugging green smoothies every day and starting my day with Special K red berries cereal, which was my favorite, right? Totally oblivious to the sugar bomb that I was actually dropping on my body. It turns out sugar is the real poison. It spikes insulin, it locks fat in, and it keeps you hungry. And I was a vegetarian for 28 years, which meant that my diet consisted almost entirely of carbohydrates and fake meat products. And then I wondered why I felt so awful and couldn't lose the weight. Spoiler, it was the sugar. But when I ditched the sugar and started loading up on healthy fat instead, it was a total game changer. My cravings faded, my energy soared, and my weight started to drop off. And now I know it's because healthy fat is so essential, right? I was so afraid of fat. I thought fat was bad. And yet, healthy fat is so essential for regulating your hormones. It's what keeps them stable and activates your metabolism. And it sounds so counterintuitive, but adding fat is actually what helps you burn fat. So now I eat butter and olive oil and full fat dairy and avocados and bacon, right? All the things that I used to avoid like the plague. And it has kept me steady at 152 pounds for years now, right? I went from 201 pounds at my highest to 152, steady Eddie. Bottom line, fat is not your enemy. It is your fuel. And I wish that I had figured that out a whole lot sooner. So that is lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, protein is your secret weapon. Because the truth is, fat alone wasn't enough for me, although I didn't figure that out right away. This one took me a little bit longer, right? Because at first, just cutting out sugar and replacing that with more healthy fat seemed like a miracle. It seemed like that was all my body really needed. I lost 25 pounds. I was feeling great, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But then 4 months in, I hit a wall. The scale wouldn't budge, right? I plateaued and I was still doing the same thing. I was still cutting out sugar. I wasn't cheating. I was still eating lots of fat. And I was getting so frustrated and I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. So I started doing more research and I had a huge aha moment. I realized that yes, I was doing some of the right things by cutting out sugar and getting more healthy fat, but I was missing a big piece, and that was protein. I wasn't getting nearly enough protein, and my body was rebelling as a result, probably because I was super deficient in all sorts of essential vitamins and minerals that you can only get from meat, right? B vitamins, iron, things that you can only really get from meat. And so after 28 years as a vegetarian, I took this huge leap and decided to start eating meat again. And I will tell you, I think I've maybe told this story before. I'm not really one to do anything half-assed. So I'm like, if I'm going to start eating meat, I'd go big or go home, right? So I had my husband Chuck and some friends take me to a Brazilian steakhouse, those places where they like walk around with those big hunks of meat and they cut it all onto your plate. Sounds crazy, right? It was a little bit crazy. They were like, oh my gosh, you're going to get sick. But I didn't get sick. It was amazing. I ate every single meat that they served. I'm like, yep, give me that one. Give me that one. And I felt absolutely invincible, like a superhero. And more importantly, that shift, right? When I started eating meat, it broke through my plateau. Those last 15 pounds came off, and I have been hooked on meat ever since. The reality is that protein not only builds muscle, it keeps you full and it powers your metabolism. It is also the most nutrient-dense food that you can eat. And I had definitely been missing it. My body was missing it. My body was craving it. And it's amazing how much better I started feeling almost immediately when I started eating a lot more meat. Maybe you're missing it too, but now it is my staple at every single meal. My goal every day is a minimum of 100 grams of protein. Usually I try to get more than that, but I've never felt better. I don't get sick, right? I don't think I've been sick in years. My husband and daughter both had the flu this year. I didn't get anything. And I attribute that to the fact that I just eat really, really well every single day, but I'm getting tons of protein and I'm getting the nutrients that my body needs. So start getting a lot more protein. It is the push that will get you past the wall. Just trust me on this one. Lesson number 4, healing beats dieting every single time. And I don't know about you, but I am very much an instant gratification kind of girl. I hate waiting. I want results and I want them yesterday. And that is pretty much how I have been my entire life. So I was the sucker. I was always a total sucker for every fad diet that came along. The quicker the promised results, the more enthusiastic I was. 10 pounds in 10 days, sign me up. And I was always all in. I'd basically starve myself, dramatically cut my calories, and try to convince myself that a gallon of water a day was keeping me full, right? Oh, I'm not hungry because I'm drinking so much water. Yeah, whatever. And sometimes I lose a little bit of weight, 5 pounds here, 10 pounds there. But the problem was that it was always this short-term fix. It wasn't sustainable. I would stay miserable for as many days as I could take it. Then I would give up and start binging on every food that I could find in my pantry. And of course, since the only weight that I had actually lost was just water weight, because that's always what you lose in the first few days of any diet, and probably some lean muscle mass, right? I was also losing lean muscle mass because I wasn't getting enough nutrients. I wasn't getting enough protein. I wasn't getting anything that I needed. So I was just harming my body and my metabolism, and I would inevitably gain it all back and then some. But at 43, after doing all the research, I changed my approach, right? I realized that dieting was counterproductive because it wasn't sustainable. And, at the same time as I'm doing this research and realizing that I have to change my lifestyle, I was also realizing that I had 2 teenage daughters who were starting to notice, and I didn't want them to see me having this crazy relationship with food that I think so many women have, right? I wouldn't call it an eating disorder. It wasn't an eating disorder. I was overweight. I wanted to lose weight, and I would do crazy things because that's what we do. But I didn't want them to see that, and I didn't want them to have a crazy relationship with food. And so I knew that if I really wanted to lose the weight for good, to actually keep it off, I had to find a way of eating that I could stick with for life. And I needed to heal my body with a different kind of lifestyle. It had to be a lifestyle where I'm eating food that I can also serve to my family, right? We're all in this together. So it can't be crazy. So I stopped counting calories and I started healing. I started focusing on, what am I going to do to nourish my body? What am I going to do to heal my body? What is wrong with my body that I need healing from, which was insulin resistance, right? Leaky gut syndrome, and my hormones were all out of whack. That was the healing that I needed to do. So that's what I focused on: reversing insulin resistance, fixing my gut, and balancing my hormones. And I learned how real food, meat and healthy fat and vegetables actually makes my body feel good, and how eating crap actually makes me feel like crap, right? Yeah, it might taste good in the moment, but the next day I feel like crap. So I stopped obsessing over the scale and I started trusting the process without some unrealistic timeline that was attached to it. I really didn't have an unrealistic timeline attached to it. I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to eat from now on. So however it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And yet, even with that, within 6 months, I had dropped 40 pounds. And now 4 years later, I'm down a total of 49 pounds and steady, right? Because that's what healing does. And I never have to think now about how much I eat or if I'm going overboard on calories. I eat what I want and I eat until I'm full and I feel good about it. But I always eat to nourish and heal my body, at least most of the time. I'm not going to say I never have a cookie or a brownie or a slice of pie or any of that. I do, because I know my body is metabolically flexible. I know that I can handle it. But most of the time, I crave the foods that make me feel good and keep my body strong. You don't need another diet. You really don't. You've tried that probably for years, just like I did. What you really need is to heal. Restriction is going to fail you every single time. Nourishing your body is what is going to work for you long term. So eat what fuels you. That is lesson number 4. Lesson number 5, consistency trumps perfection. I don't know about you, but I used to think that I had to be perfect. Every meal, every day, flawless. One slip and I would spiral. I blew it. And then I'd give up. I could not handle it. Everything was so all or nothing, right? I was either all in or all out. I was totally committed or I was totally off the rails. And so many of us, I think, have this all or nothing mentality, this black or white mentality, but perfection is a myth. And I think that's been one of the biggest game changers for this journey that I've been on for the last 4 years, right? Since starting the current journey that I would consider myself still to be on in 2021, I gave myself permission to not be perfect. And I wasn't flawless, not even close. In fact, sometimes I cringe now a little bit at some of the food that I used to eat, right? Because in the beginning, when I was just trying to figure this out and make this work, I was more concerned about cutting out sugar and getting more fat. But I didn't really know that much about processed foods and right. So I ate all sorts of processed crap that said keto on the package. And I ate way more cheese than I probably should have, right? I was eating like, I don't know, a pound of cheese a day or something like that. And I didn't quite understand how important it was to ditch seed oils and get rid of those toxic processed ingredients, or how much better I would feel if I was just focused on whole nutrient dense foods and healthy fats. It was a journey. It's still a journey. And over the past 4 years, I have had plenty of slip ups, if you want to call them that. I don't really even call them that, right? I go on vacation and I eat out sometimes, right? I drink beer, not even the low carb kind, like real beer. At Christmas, I bake cookies and treats with my kids with real sugar in it. On Thanksgiving, I eat real stuffing and real mashed potatoes, and I savor every mouthful. So, what is the difference for me now? Well, number one, I don't quit just because I stumble. But I think more importantly, I don't consider it a stumble. I consider it a choice. Most of the time, I choose to eat healthy, whole, nutrient dense foods that are low in sugar and high in protein and high in healthy fat. That is how I cook for my family. That is what makes us all feel good. And my daughter, my teenage daughter, is learning how to cook. I've talked a lot about this on social media, and she's been cooking several meals a week. And I don't really have any rules for her on what she can cook, except that it has to be high in protein. And we already normally cook with healthy fats, right? So she doesn't even know the difference. We don't keep any nasty fats in the house. So everything that she uses is either butter or avocado oil or olive oil or real meat. So I tell her it has to be high in protein and it has to be whole foods. We're not going to eat packaged crap. You're not going to make hamburger helper for dinner. That's never going to enter into our home ever again, right? But so that's how she's cooking too. And she's so proud of herself and she loves it. And it makes us all feel good to know that we're just eating good, healthy food. But there are also moments where I choose to enjoy that piece of pie or those mashed potatoes, or my daughter makes brownies, right? And I eat those too, without guilt, without spiraling, without going off the rails. Consistency and not perfection is what helped me lose 49 pounds and keep it off. And you do not have to be flawless either. Slip-ups happen, but what matters is that you keep showing up. So focus on the big picture, real food, steady habits. That's how you get there. It's not all or nothing. It's just keeping at it. And that's lesson number 5. Lesson number 6, it's about freedom, not weight loss. And I will admit, I started this journey 4 years ago for no other reason than I wanted to be thinner. When I hit 201 pounds, it was a wake-up call for me. It was the most that I had ever weighed, even more than I did at 9 months pregnant with either of my kids. I weighed more than my husband, and that felt mortifying. I didn't even really care that much about being healthy. Like, that was not my motivator. I just didn't want to be fat anymore. And I will be honest, I probably would have paid any amount of money to fix the problem. I seriously looked into liposuction. And if Ozempic had been an option for me 4 years ago, I would have been first in line. You would not be listening to this podcast. It wouldn't have happened, right? Thinlicious would have never happened. I would have just taken Ozempic and been like, I'm skinny now, right? It took actually getting healthy for me to realize what I wish I had understood from the beginning, that healing your body is freedom. When you reverse insulin resistance and balance your hormones and heal your gut, you unlock a freedom I don't think I even realized was possible. Yes, you lose the weight, and that is awesome. I love it, right? I love that I wear a size that I've never worn before in my adult life. I'm not going to be shy about that. I love that I feel super confident in a bikini, and that feels good too. But it's this freedom that goes way beyond that, this freedom to just look and feel your best and to not obsess about food or to be in this permanent shame spiral and to not have food addictions and cravings all the time. The freedom of time and energy that comes when you're not obsessing about what you're going to eat for your next meal. It's the freedom to walk into a store and try on dresses and feel amazing and not ashamed. The freedom to live your life to the absolute fullest, because now your health isn't holding you back. I don't get headaches every day. I don't feel inflamed. I don't have aches and pains the way that I used to. I have energy all day long. And then the metabolic flexibility, knowing that your body is working the way that it should and the way that it's designed to work, and just feeling good. Honestly, I am at a point now where I don't really have to think about how I'm going to maintain my progress. For a long time, I worried, oh my gosh, like, am I going to gain it back? Like I always have in the past. I don't worry about that anymore. This is just the way that I live. And I have lots of healthy habits that keep me on track. Things that, like walking outside every single morning and planning my meals on the weekend, right? And having a plan for what we're going to eat, and going to the grocery store and making my bone broth and food prep and all this stuff, right? Those are healthy habits that keep me on track. But that's what gives me the freedom to feel confident in bikini, to sip cocktails with friends and not think about it, or to go out to the Alva Diner and order that slice of homemade pie. That's the win for me. A life where food fits, not rules, where I'm not controlled by cravings or guilt. So believe me when I tell you that you're not just chasing a number, you are chasing freedom. Heal your body, insulin, gut, hormones, and you will get there. Imagine that, right? Imagine not obsessing over food all day and not feeling that pull to eat junk in the pantry just because it's there, just living your best life. That is what I want for you. It is so much closer than you think. So that is lesson number 6. And finally, lesson number 7, trust your body. It knows what it needs. And this one cuts deep, right? Because for so many years, and maybe you can relate to this, for so many years, I punished my body for not being what I wanted it to be. I was so hard on myself and hard on my body. I would ignore hunger, right? And I would endure these tasteless, low-calorie meals that always left me wanting more. And even like exercise, I thought working out meant that I had to suffer, which would mean hours on the treadmill or going for a 5-mile run or being on the elliptical machine, right? I'd constantly override my body thinking that I knew better. And it was always a mistake, because inevitably I would eat a salad, even though I hate salads, and I would be famished an hour later, and then I'd be raiding the pantry for chips, and it was always this losing battle. But when I started listening to my body, right, like eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm full, everything started to click. And sometimes people ask me about intermittent fasting, like, oh, I'm doing intermittent fasting. I can't eat until 11 o'clock, or I can't eat until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or whatever. Honestly, I am not a big fan of that. I am not a big fan of trying to stick to some rigid schedule, because sometimes your body needs food and sometimes it doesn't. And you're so much better off learning how to listen rather than trying to dictate a result that you can't actually control. And it's taken me a long time to learn that and really get to the point where I do trust my body, but that's what works. And it never looks exactly the same. Some days I eat 3 full meals and snacks in between. Other days, I don't even think about food until dinner time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten any all day. And I'll eat some giant steak, or I'll just like be famished. But there's no real clocks. There's no rules, just me and my body in sync. And ultimately, I think that is what has kept me steady without all that much effort. I now trust my body to tell me when I need fuel and what kind. And yes, I have a plan for what I'm going to eat when I do feel it, but I'm not rigid about, oh my gosh, I made this bone broth, so now I have to have this right now, even if my body is telling me I don't need anything right now. So your body is smart, right? I want you to trust it. Feed it real food and it will tell you what it needs. Stop fighting it with diets. Start listening. That is when the magic happens. And that is lesson number 7. So there you have it, friends. My 7 lessons from 4 years of this health journey, hitting me with all the feels as I turned 47. It's not your fault, but you can fix it. Fat's not the enemy. Protein is key. Healing beats dieting, consistency wins, freedom's the goal, and your body knows best. They're lessons that are simple in theory, but I will tell you they are hard fought in practice, and they take a lot of reinforcement and a lot of repetition before you will actually learn them for good. That's where my TAS program can help, and it is such a game changer. And so if you want to find out more about how it works and how you can get started, go watch my free training at thinlicious.com/happy. Again, I will put the link in the show notes as well, but it's really good. And it is your first step to this life. So that is all I have for today, my friends. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, I would love it if you could do me a huge favor and either share this with someone who needs it or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. You can wish me a happy birthday. Then be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified of new episodes. And I will see you back here again very soon for our next new episode. In the meantime, here is to 47 and feeling better than ever.